Well, again, thanks again for coming to the Virginia College Radio Conference here in 2021. When I was planning this year's conference, I thought, who can I bring in as a speaker who's done cool things after college radio? And I thought of Laura Lyons. Laura, I really realized recently I've known for about 9 years. And back in 2012, she was a student at UVA. She signed on as a volunteer in WTJU's rock department and hosted a bunch of solid radio shows. She also worked with artists and organized a bunch of live events. These days, Laura actually makes a living in the music industry, which is very, like, way cool. She is the U.S. campaign manager at a pair of very good independent record labels, XL Recordings and Young. And recently, she's been working on projects with Arca, Yeji, Mustafa, Bad, Not Good, and a little band called Radiohead. Laura, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to see you and to meet all the rest of you.
So I want to kick things off with a real general question. It's 2021. Why does college radio matter?
Yeah, I think that, something that Catherine spoke to that I think is always going to be what's really important is it's this way for people to actually have very real communities around music, as we get further and further into our very sort of individualized media spheres. We like, especially as people who are putting out independent music for developing artists who maybe are like very outside of, mainstream popular culture. It's we can't rely so much on like the pitchforks and the music media. It's really people that are in communities who are care about new music and talk about new music and want to share it with each other, that we feel really, or that I feel really like can allow artists to grow. So for me, college radio was huge part of that, of just like discovering new music and getting to talk about it with my friends like at UVA. And I had a ton of friends at WXJM and JMU. And yeah, that like I was saying before we started, I'm starting to get all these like notifications about albums having like 10-year, 15-year anniversaries. And, I think back to when they came out, and it's just like playing them on my radio show, booking them for shows around Virginia, and getting to feel like I was such a part of the beginning of these artists' kind of like incredible careers, even just as like a kid at a radio station. So I just think it's really empowering, and like, yeah, you can't replace community and like real passion with anything. And I think college radio is where that really exists.
Laura, take me through your story. I remember you kind of came to WTGU already with some stuff in mind. You weren't, I mean, you were fresh at it and all. You were in college, but
Right.
you already had like an interest in live music and an interest in working with artists and stuff.
Yeah.
How'd you first get into all this?
So when I got to UVA, I really had this like I joined the concerts committee, which at UVA is called PKG. But basically, I was like, damn, like I can use other kids' money to bring like J. Cole. Sick. And so, yeah, I got really into like booking concerts on campus. And then a bunch of my best friends went to college at JMU, and they had this really, really great group of friends that they had all met through college radio. And I was like, great, that sounds fun. So yeah, I joined the college radio station. Um, I booked some shows out of sort of a lack of house shows in Charlottesville in the student area. I was like, oh, maybe I can book some shows at like a coffee shop. And I started like just hanging out downtown and meeting people from like the Charlottesville music scene. And through that, I kind of met some folks at Red Light and started doing internships with them. The timeline is actually quite, I don't know what came first. I think it was like concerts, and then radio, and then Red Light. And then I started doing sort of like college rep type internships for Sony's independent distributor. And yeah, that's kind of how it all started in college. But it was basically just out of a desire to like meet other people who were into music and be involved uh, in the Charlottesville community, and get a little bit like of get to know the city outside of just like the school.
The air quotes around involved or the with the real key there.
I was like,
No,
I
but
got
really,
the time, I guess. Let's fill it. Let's do some cool stuff.
I mean, there's a lot of there are a lot of people involved in college radio who do want to work in the music industry in some way. I meet students with that interest all the time. Um, how so you've talked a little bit about how you kind of parlayed your experience into working in the music industry, that kind of step by step. But
Mhm.
take me through, like, in the pandemic world and the maybe one day post-pandemic world, how can people get in?
Yeah, I mean, I think in ways, the pandemic has actually made getting an entry, like a foot in the door of the music industry, easier. When I was uh, like just late college, starting my career, you had to do unpaid internships, most of which are based in New York or LA. I had the privilege of living in Charlottesville, and my fourth year I didn't really take classes. I just like worked at a restaurant, and so I could kind of, live in a very affordable city at the time. I don't know what the deal is now, but live in a very affordable city, do that unpaid internship for Red Light, which is like a major management company that happens to be based in Charlottesville, and sort of get some early experience there. Nowadays, more and more internships are paid, which is fantastic. And the availability of remote internships allows you to not have to, try and live in two of the most expensive country or cities in the country and still be able to get those experiences, and those relationships, because ultimately, it's a competitive industry, and frankly it's not one that pays super well, especially on the entry level. So there are quite a few barriers to entry, and I think, the possibility of remote work actually lowers some of those barriers. So, if it is something you're interested in, definitely like go for it, and be sure to just be like, if you do get a remote internship or something, just try to get one-on-ones, try to get FaceTime, because it's a it's an industry where like relationships matter a lot.
Tell me more. You say go for it, and I want to kind of tease out what that means a little bit, in terms of what should a 20, 21, 22-year-old be doing now to
Yeah.
set up the go for it part?
Yeah, I think that you know, showing in your sort of daily life, in your university life, that you're passionate about music in a way that means like you're doing stuff in your local community is the biggest thing that you can do. I used to like run an internship program at my first job, and everyone's cover letter is like, I love music. And I'm like, yeah, everyone does. Like, that's not a qualification. You want to be able to show that you're like, I am involved in my local scene. I am trying to like advocate for local artists. I'm doing street teaming, I'm doing my radio show, I'm booking concerts for, within the university, all these, uh, pursuing like learning experiences to get to find out how the industry works. Because, most schools don't have a music industry program. I know if you do, it's absolutely not necessary to have a job in the music industry. Frankly, a college degree isn't even necessary to have a job in the music industry, but it's a good thing to have. Um, and yeah, it's just that thing again about like being involved, because that kind of shows that you're really serious about it, and you're not just like, oh, this seems glamorous, let me give it a shot. It's like, I know it's not glamorous and I still want to do it.
It's been a couple of years with the pandemic. People aren't talking as much about college radio and its relationship with the music industry, but there were kind of like a spate of articles around 2017, 2018 about, does college radio still matter? Well, yeah, it actually still plays a role, but how's that role evolving? And so, how for you now that you're on the label side of things, how does college radio matter, or how is that evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us at XL and Young, but especially at XL, we put out a lot of music that is very niche. And it's not about finding a massive audience, it's about finding the right audience. And for us, a lot of that comes down to like college and specialty radio. Um, for example, we'll put out like esoteric, like minimalist electronic music. That's not going to be played, on WFUV or NRN or whatever. But we can we'll know the couple of DJs at, XJM or at WTJU that will really, appreciate it and become fans because, at the end of the day, we want someone who is going to feel connected to the music and compelled to buy one of the like 212 inches that we bring into the whole country. So it's not like college radio and specialty radio are both really important for us as when it comes to like finding early fans who will become real fans, as opposed to some of our, you know, bigger priorities where we're maybe going like trying to like blanket non-com with like high spins. So I think that college, yeah, is still really important for like just like the organic kind of audience that we want to find to be like, I don't, you want to find people who really care and are gonna like grow with the artist as they sort of like develop their work. There's folks that I started listening to in like 2013. And I mean, when I was on the like when I had a radio show at TJU, I was playing like the leaked J. Paul mixtape, and we reissued that or finally officially released that this past year, and I got to, have that full circle feeling of being like, damn, like I really like downloaded this off of Bandcamp illicitly, and like I've been there since the very first moment, and it just felt real, and I've sort of stayed on his team this whole time in very different ways. So yeah, I think it's not a scale thing like it used to be, but it is definitely like a niche that is really important for like.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is it's not trying to reach the mass audience or even all the students, but trying to reach a particular, like cultivating true fans, like you put it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's especially for like in like indie bands that are like really hitting the road. It's like you want the right people to show up to that show, and reaching out to college radio students is a really good way to be like to ensure that essentially.
Hmm. So you're a few years out from it. If you were to talk to a group of college radio station managers, as you are, what kind of advice I mean, if you, like looking back, what can college radio stations do these days to
Mm.
show their value to their administrations, to the music world? What's the key thing?
Um, I guess I can't really speak to like show their value to the college administrations
Sorry, that's
particularly.
yeah, that's a panel later.
I imagine it's challenging. But I think it's just being vocal about what you're doing at your station. If you're talking about, showing your value in the music industry, it's like talk to the reps, talk to the radio people that are reaching out to you, like let them know what you like ask for tickets, ask for vinyl, like don't be shy. They want to give it to you. And when you're expressing what you really are um, interested in terms of like the music, it's a great way to start building those relationships. It's a great way to have those reps go back to their labels or label groups and be like, oh, this station is is like big on everything you put out, like let's make sure we're prioritizing them going forward. And it's yeah, it's just a good way to sort of build a reputation. I know that without the CMJ charts, there's less, it is much more sort of anecdotal than it used to be, where it used to be like, oh, here's like the big charting college radio stations that we want to super serve. And now it's more focused on, yeah, just that like anecdotal and like organic growth that's harder to measure, but really, a great way to start feeling a groundswell around a new artist.
Hey, I want to open the floor to questions or conversation anybody else might have who'd like to chime in and chat with you. So feel free to just kind of raise your hand or just jump in. I'll keep an eye out for when you unmute. If you've got any questions for Laura or just things you'd like to share. What I think that CMJ kind of imploded. It's been a few years now, and I'm not sure everybody quite knows what the story was or what CMJ even fully was. Perhaps could you talk just a little bit about what CMJ was, its
Yeah.
role, and then kind of how that need has evolved or what's evolved from it?
Right. So CMJ was the college music journal, and it essentially was like the radio chart for college radio. And it was a, just like any other radio format chart, it was a way to measure your success at college. And, while there still is a college radio chart, I think, and please, if you know better on the details of this than me, please correct me, but it's a little bit more of an informal uh, ranking, and I think less weighted and not measured quite as accurately. So it's lost a little bit of that force. And CMJ was also a South by basically for college radio students in New York City. So we would come up to the city, and there would just be a ton of shows over the course of a week. You'd schmooze, you'd meet some industry people, you'd get drunk with your friends, try to get into venues that you're too young for. Like it was good vibes. Um, but yeah, they went bankrupt, I believe, like 4 years ago, and folded. So there's a bit of a vacuum in that space right now. But we everyone who is set up to sort of be servicing college radio stations, with the goal of like charting on CMJ, are still doing that same work of servicing college radio stations, but the feedback is just, yeah, a bit more anecdotal and informal. So, you know, whether that is, has made college radio like quote unquote less important in terms of like campaigns, is hard to say. I think it's just every campaign is different, and you college radio is more important for certain niche or developing artists, than for you know big mainstream bands where you're like, yeah, like the kids are gonna like it, like we don't need to like worry about that, we'll send them some stuff, but yeah, CMJ was a time.
Well, you've talked a lot about the relationships and developing
Yeah.
relationships with people in the music industry. Um, I mean, tell me more about the kind of nuts and bolts of that. If you're, at a college radio station, how do you develop these relationships? How do you get music, more music sent to you? How do you kind of, nurture those?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's important to try and, if you're really into radio and you want to pursue a career in the music industry, you should try to become like a music director or a program director, and like be in that position where you're talking to promoters, because ultimately it's going to be folks at labels that are sending you music and asking you what you think, or people that are sort of hired by labels to do that. And like, for example, if you're talking to a promoter that is at, the syndicate, they're someone who has a relationship with probably 30 to 50 independent labels. So if you have a good friendship or relationship with the promoter at the syndicate, you later want to get an internship at Sub Pop or whatever. They're going to be the one to put in a good word for you. They're going to be trusted, and that's a really big way to like get a foot in the door. So trying to get those leadership positions, having like real conversations about music with people, and like not just treating it as a network relationship, but as like a friendship, and being like, we're both here because we love music. So like, let's talk about what we like and what we don't like, is gonna, yeah, it's gonna take you far. Oh, you're muted, Nathan.
Yep, it's a rookie mistake. We've had a nice conversation so far, and I just wanted to thank you for your time before we're totally done, but also just to see if anybody else has other questions, thoughts, comments, or things they want to find out more about kind of your experience and um, sort of the music industry world these days. Can I get a new Radiohead copy?
The triple LP.
Yeah, that one, that one.
We'll see what we could do. I'm still working on getting mine. Yeah, vinyl is also, super screwed. I should have said that's a big thing that's happened during the pandemic. It is like impossible to get vinyl made. Our lead times are now like 6 to 8 months before a release.
Wow.
And that's when you need to turn in like all the artwork, all the masters. So the sort of nature of campaigns is very, very stretched out these days for artists for whom vinyl is a factor, partially for that. So things
Wow.
are quite crazy, but we're adjusting always.
Yeah, yeah. So if you wanted to go a whole other track, you could make some money opening a vinyl pressing facility.
Yeah, I've always wondered why Corin does not do that.
She's talking
Um,
about Corin Capshaw, the head of Red Light Management,
yes,
um,
like
and
owns Charlottesville
yeah,
basically.
owns a third of Charlottesville. Yeah, yeah. Ben, is that a question or just scratching your head?
Just scratching my head.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. um, well, Laura, anything else you want to add before we wrap up and move on to some of the breakout sessions?
Um, not much. Just if music is something that you're really interested in, you just gotta try to get your foot in the door however you can and stick with it because it will ultimately work out. But you gotta hustle for a bit at the beginning. But luckily for y'all, you can get paid to do that. So you got to work for the majors because they're the ones afraid of getting sued. So that's my tip for getting internships.
All right, there you go. All right, Laura. Well, thank you again so much for your time.
Yep, no problem. Talk to you later.
Bye.